If you've been following me on Twitter, you'll know that I recently read through the popular light novel series Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation. Going in, I only knew two things about it: that it took inspiration from the Rance series, and that it's generally regarded as one of the better examples of the isekai genre. Now, I like Rance quite a bit, which should be evidenced by the fact that I've made 7 videos on the series so far. Yes, the Rance 6 video is coming, be patient. But one thing I don't talk about much is that I also really like isekai, or at least I really like the idea of isekai. The actual execution often leaves a bit to be desired. Those two factors, plus my general love of books, convinced me to give Mushoku Tensei a shot. So imagine my shock when I realized that this series is one of the greatest things I've ever read, and Rifujin Namagonote is absolutely brilliant. I legitimately read all 26 books in under 2 months. I was that obsessed. I just knew that even though I'm not a booktuber, I just had to make content on this series because it's just that good. And also, the Rance inspiration means there is at least a tangential connection to my normal content, so I've got an excuse. For this video, I'm going to go fairly light on specifics and details. I'll talk about interesting things the series does, but I'm going to be very vague about showcasing any examples. There are 2 reasons for this. Firstly, the way the story is written, things get revealed and situations change drastically as the story progresses. This means that it is exceptionally hard to talk about even minor events that happen after the first major story arc without spoiling major events from earlier. And I want this video to be my sales pitch to you, so I'm going to keep this video as spoiler-free as possible, which means I can't go into as much detail as I'd normally like to. The second reason is that this will not be my only Mushoku Tensei video. I've actually started rereading the series, taking detailed notes as I go. I'll be doing a series of videos completely dissecting these books arc by arc. That's where the spoilers will be located. So this video won't be super detailed, but hopefully it will convince you to give the series a shot. And I'll just mention that as of recording, 25 of the 26 books in the series are easily found in PDF and EPUB format, so if you have an e-reader or are fine with reading from a monitor, you can demo the books for free if you're so inclined. The story starts off like your typical isekai. We have our protagonist, a 34-year-old unnamed hikikomori who gets kicked out of his home and shortly thereafter gets hit by Truck-kun and is reincarnated into a medieval high fantasy world with magic, elves, monsters, all that good stuff. It's there that he's given the name we know him as, Rudius Greyrat, or Rudy for short. He discovers that he has an aptitude for magic, and as he grows up, he ends up going on a variety of adventures. Pretty standard isekai stuff, and for the first few volumes at least, the appeal of Mushoku Tensei, aside from it being really fucking funny at times, mainly lies in the fact that it just does the isekai thing better than average. And I think the main reason for that early on, before major game-changing plot things start happening, is that the character work in this series is exceptionally strong, and the best example I can really give without spoilers would be Rudy himself. A major theme of Mushoku Tensei as a whole is one of self-improvement and personal growth. Many characters throughout the series go through a process where they confront their various inner demons and weaknesses, and none are more pronounced than Rudy. And in fact, most of those growth arcs end up being parallels of Rudy's own arc. So let's be brutally honest here. At the start of the story, Rudy is a complete degenerate scumbag, and it gets hammered home real quick. On the very first page of Volume 1, this fact is highlighted by the greatest line in all of literature. What the hell had I even done wrong? All I did was skip out on our parents' funeral so I could spank it to uncensored lolly porn. Yes, that line is fucking hilarious, but it really demonstrates how warped his mindset is after 20-ish years as a shut-in. It's not a coincidence that square one for the reader is rock bottom for Rudy. But this introductory sequence also achieves a rather impressive feat. See, Rudy's journey of personal growth is arguably the cornerstone of this series. Everything kinda hinges on him becoming a better person. But while we are absolutely not supposed to sympathize with him at the start, he is also pretty effectively humanized to the reader. Underpinning his anger at his siblings kicking him out is a crushing hopelessness. You get the sense that he wants to put himself in a better position, find a job, but that he considers that an impossibility. And he's also quickly established as at least not being all bad. The reason he gets killed by a truck is because he put himself in harm's way to save a teenager who would have been hit had he not intervened. Don't get me wrong, his overall mindset is fucked and he's definitely a creepy loser, which is something he carries with him for quite some time to come. But you do get these few glimmers of humanity to show that he's not completely gone and he is someone who has the potential to improve. And this is a driving motivator for how he conducts himself in his new life. He knows he wasted his old life, so he resolves to make the most of his new one. He works hard to train his magic because he regrets never developing useful skills. He does his best to look out for his new parents, in his own skewed way, because he regrets torpedoing his old familial ties and he feels a degree of gratitude for their general kindness. He protects another child from bullies because he was bullied in his old life and he doesn't want anyone else to suffer like that. He learns how to trust and rely on people because he finally has a chance to not be lonely. Now, he doesn't just fix himself right away. He's still a creep who crosses boundaries, and he does low-key act inappropriately towards 90% of the girls and women he encounters, at least early on. And yeah, part of his spiral has him acting unacceptably towards his underage peers. I mean, he is physically a child, so nobody really cares, and it's unclear how much his new physical brain affects his psyche. It's complicated, but you're very much not supposed to approve. He still makes even my autistic ass say, "Come on dude, read the fucking room." But we have a baseline here. You're not supposed to really like him, but you don't hate him either. We have the foundations of a strong character who we want to see get better. And he does improve in many ways, while still in some ways being influenced by his old mindset. I won't give any details here, but he does have a tendency to withdraw and spiral into depression and loneliness when things get really bad, just like he did in his original life. He has persistent self-esteem issues, and even once he improves to the point of being a genuinely admirable person, you can tell that he still kind of views himself as that 34-year-old loser. He does improve as time goes on, and he has his setbacks as well. His overall arc is really compelling, and he's just one of the many characters who I would argue could be just as compelling. Even side characters who only ever serve a minor role in a single arc of the story will typically get at least a chapter or two from their perspective, with the sole purpose of picking apart their brain and letting you see what they're all about. There are multiple times throughout the story where we'll see a series of events that led up to some sort of resolution, concluding whatever immediate conflict is happening. But instead of just moving on like most series would, or just going into a monologue wrapping things up, it'll shift into the POV of one of the other characters and literally give you a condensed version of their life story. Like, you'll see how their childhood played out and how the unique struggles they faced led them to whatever mindset they have or the decisions they make in the present. It really goes a long way towards making every single character in the series feel like a real person, who has their own things going on independent of Rudy and all the plot stuff that happens. And this starts happening in Volume 1. Honestly, the characters are what many people end up taking away from the series. I know I really can't do it justice without giving specifics, but I absolutely loved all the characters and the truly stylish way their stories were told. I was also very impressed by how they handled the magic and general combat elements of the world. This is something I can go into detail about without spoiling anything, and if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I'm a sucker for a good magic system. So in the world of Mushoku Tensei, individuals who want to be able to either fight for self-defense reasons or who want to be part of an adventuring party have two paths available: swordplay or magic. Swords are overwhelmingly the most popular melee weapon, and they actually have world-building reasons for why other weapons are rare that I won't get into here. In Mushoku Tensei, warriors can unconsciously use magic to boost their physical capabilities, making even relatively unskilled swordsmen pretty deadly by real-world standards. Swordplay is divided into three styles: Sword God style, which prioritizes fast, decisive offense; Water God style, which is all about defense and counterattacks; and North God style, which is all about adaptation and using any means necessary to gain an advantage, including shit like chucking your sword at the enemy. Magic also has three broad categories, though there are subcategories to each which are considered their own unique disciplines. There's attack magic, which consists of fire, water, earth, and wind spells. There's healing magic, which consists of direct healing and detoxification. And there's summoning magic, which includes direct summons and the creation of magical barriers. Magic is typically done by an incantation. Chant the spell, do the magic at the cost of some of your mana, which is a sort of energy that's stored within your body and replenishes over time. Bigger spells require longer incantations and more mana, though it is possible for an adept mage to shorten certain incantations. Notably, Rudy pretty quickly uses his existing knowledge of basic scientific concepts to figure out how to silent cast elemental magic, which is considered a highly rare and impressive skill. Some spells also require you to set up a magic circle, which is a deliberate and meticulous process, but once set up, prevents miscasts and can be reused for as long as it lasts. There's also divine magic for fighting undead monsters, but it only really shows up a handful of times, so it's not worth thinking about right now. So on its own, that's a pretty functional system, and it allows for a lot of interesting things, and you do come across multiple iterations of all these different schools of magic and swordplay, with both Rudy's allies and enemies. But the thing I really want to discuss is the interesting power scaling. Due to the influence of magic to both magic itself and swordplay, everything is a lot more deadly than in real life, and there's a semi-formal ranking system to describe how strong someone is in a particular discipline. The ranks are as follows: Beginner, Intermediate, Advanced, Saint, king, emperor, god. These titles apply regardless of gender, so women are also known as kings and emperors when they reach those respective ranks. Early on in the story, advanced level is more or less established as the baseline of someone who is pretty highly skilled, with Rudy's father Paul being advanced rank in all 3 swordplay styles, which makes him good enough to be a renowned adventurer. Ranks higher than advanced are typically bestowed by a high-level instructor and come with a title. So if I were to reach the Saint rank in North God style, I would be known as North Saint Ads. Saint tier is something to brag about. A sword, water, or North Saint is very deadly, definitely somewhere in the top single-digit percentages of warriors. King tier gets you recognized. There are only a handful of sword, water, and North Kings. People know who they are, and they are scared of them. They're also pretty highly sought after by those in power, both for the obvious reason that they're master combatants, but also having a king tier swordsman in your employment is a pretty solid status symbol. Only the best fighters in the world stand a chance against them in single combat. The Imperial tier is the highest category of proficiency. To become an emperor, a king must do something absolutely fucking ridiculous, or defeat another king in a duel. And lastly, the Sword God, Water God, and North God are the top practitioners of their respective styles. They're the ones who grant king and emperor status, and the only way to obtain the title of god is to defeat the current god in single combat and take it from them. Magic follows the same naming conventions for its ranking system, but they don't have the same structured schools of learning that Swordplay has. Also, ranks are not granted by a higher-up. Instead, you are automatically considered the equivalent rank of the highest level spell you've successfully cast for each discipline. So if you are able to cast a king tier fire spell one time, you are a fire king, and everyone will recognize you as such, assuming they believe you. Furthermore, there doesn't seem to be a god at the head of any of the magical disciplines, and though we never meet anyone who identifies as an earth god or anything like that, I'm fairly certain that the god level does represent an actual level of power instead of it simply being a title like Swordplay. It's also worth noting that there are other individuals who have god in their titles, but that's more of a situational and informal thing. Individuals who are highly skilled combatants, like comparable or greater to the Swordplay gods, may be recognized by essentially an honorary title relating to their circumstances. For example, the chief of the ogres is known as the Ogre God. Good rule of thumb is that if they're called god, they're probably a big deal. And realistically, anyone with the ability to cast god-level magic probably already has a different god title. Now, the way this power scaling is revealed to the reader through the lens of Rudy talking about Paul does 2 very interesting things that prime you for the story ahead. Firstly, it establishes the heightened power scaling of this world. Rudy likens advanced in swordplay rank to 3rd Dan rank in Kendo. I don't really know Kendo, but Google leads me to believe that that level represents someone who has spent years actively training and is pretty respectable in their skill. You don't necessarily need to be a prodigy or to forsake your normal life to reach this level, but it is something that takes a lot of practice and dedication. And indeed, in the world of Mushoku Tensei, advanced level fighters are pretty capable and not all that uncommon. Again, Paul was able to become a highly successful adventurer at the advanced level. Granted, this was in 3 styles, but while he's pretty good, he's not in the upper echelons. So everything in the world of Mushoku Tensei is kinda turned up to 11, but at the same time it does set you up for how Paul is strong compared to the average fighter, but is actually relatively weak in the grand scheme of things, at least compared to most of the major players in the story. Rudy ends up encountering the full spectrum of skill from beginner to god, both as allies and as enemies, and he himself becomes pretty damn strong in the process. Paul is established as a competent fighter that people respect, only to then later showcase all these people who are just completely out of his fucking league. Like, it gets absolutely nuts after a while. Imagine some shonen bullshit where they have to keep upping the ante with each arc by making the characters do more and more ridiculous things. Now imagine it was all perfectly logical. That's Mushoku Tensei. They managed to have power scaling that is absolutely ludicrous and over the top, and they made it feel like a natural and logical part of the world. And I believe it all came on top of the foundation of Rudy talking about Paul in Volume 1. Tons of effort and skill went into this aspect of world building, but it all started with Paul. And that's just one example of how meticulous this writing is. I'm a big ol' nerd who really appreciates the technical side of writing, and on my first read of Mushoku Tensei, I was constantly blown away by what I was seeing. There were so many light bulb moments for me, and I cannot express enough how impressive this series is. I could probably gush about Mushoku Tensei for hours, and realistically, my upcoming critique series will almost certainly end up being exactly that. So I think I'm gonna stop here. Know that I only scratched the surface with this video, and that's by design. I didn't talk about how this story will repeat scenes from different points of view to highlight Rudy's self-esteem issues. I didn't even mention the main conflict. Trust me, I would have to spoil like 5 major game-changing plot points to even explain what that conflict is. I barely talked about how fucking funny this series is, and there are moments that made me laugh out loud in real life. And I mean also, tell me any other piece of media that has references to both BioShock and Thomas the Tank Engine. I didn't mention how separate story arcs will parallel each other to highlight a bit of dramatic irony or to hammer home a theme. I didn't mention how small, seemingly inconsequential things will become relevant like 15 volumes later. I didn't mention how there are little details and connections that practically require a second read-through to catch. Seriously, an offhand line in Volume 1 actually connects something there to a completely separate set of characters and major events that doesn't show up until like halfway into the series. And the author draws no attention to it, leaving it up to the reader to notice it. It's actually fucking ridiculous. I know that my content mainly focuses on weeb shit, but I've been reading for pretty much my entire life, even before I went to kindergarten. I've read literally hundreds of books in my lifetime, and even now I typically blow through 2 to 4 full-length books a month. I read and have read a lot, and Mushoku Tensei is up there with the best. I don't think I could say it's the best thing I've ever read, but it's definitely in the conversation. I only started these books because I just wanted a bit of a break from the very long book series I was already reading. Horus Heresy, if you're wondering. But it absolutely took me by storm, and I've hardly been able to think about anything else lately. It's just that good. So I would highly encourage you to give this series a shot. As I mentioned, if you're the type to sail the 7 seas, that is definitely an option here. Though to be clear, I do not endorse or encourage that. But you really should read these books. They are amazing and you will not regret it. Plus, my upcoming critiques will likely be a lot more fun to watch with context. I'll leave a link to the Amazon page for Volume 1 in the description. It's not even an affiliate link or anything, I just really think you should read these books. Thanks for watching. And a big thank you to my $10 member, Bulk Squat Thrust. If you liked the video, please consider helping me out by leaving a like or a comment. And definitely subscribe if you're interested in those critiques, because I think they're going to turn out pretty damn good. I'm rereading and taking notes right now, and there is just so much to talk about. I can't wait personally. And don't worry, my normal content isn't going anywhere, and because of changes in my personal life, I suspect I'll start uploading a lot more frequently, so I should see you all very soon. Well, once again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Play the electro swing.
Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back.